What would big brand energy do? The big move could be, okay, I'm going to show up on social media and talk to the camera, even though inside I really don't feel like I can or like I want to. PR is so broad. There are so many opportunities, but you have to like create the opportunities for yourself by really taking your brand seriously. So it's like build the brand, share the brand, and then we use PR to amplify the brand. If you are not a credible source, if they can't go to your LinkedIn or your Instagram and see that you're an expert on the subject already, why should they feature you? If we don't have a community of cheerleaders or people that believe in our work, it can be really hard to grow that business. Like I work with clients all the time who go out there, pitch themselves, secure media placements, get a speaking gig, all these different things, go on a podcast, and then they don't share that content. At that point, we've like totally missed the point of PR.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
So, Katrina, what is big brand energy?
Okay, so big brand energy is something that I started to come up with when I was feeling quite small in my business. So a lot of the time when we're starting out as entrepreneurs, we feel small because we don't know what our business is going to become yet. Maybe we have an idea. Maybe we actually aren't quite sure and we're just trying to like see what sticks. So big brand energy unfolded out of this need to start visualizing how big we want to become and then acting like we already have that. So I'm not much of a manifestation kind of girl on the surface, but I guess in some respects, if we want to describe like what big brand energy really is, it is kind of that concept, you know, there's the book called The Secret and all of these things that have kind of like lingered in the background of society. But I really do believe that if we start treating our business like it is already this big business that we've dreamed of, we'll get there so much faster. And a lot of that is due to using tactics like public relations, which a lot of people think that they're not ready for. So PR and big brand energy go hand in hand because I really believe that we need to start using PR in our businesses before we think that we're ready, because it's actually this tactic that helps us grow our awareness and our authority so much faster, which in turn grows our business so much faster. So getting comfortable with acting like we're a big brand, even if we only have like 12 followers, even if we aren't super comfortable talking on camera yet, but starting to like do the action and just like acting like we already have it all actually helps us get there really fast, so much faster than we ever would have imagined. So a lot of the times I root my strategies in big brand energy. So a client might ask me like, oh, what do you think about doing this? For example, I have a client who has an Instagram account and is starting a couple other businesses, podcasts, some separate entities that are still related. She asked me if she needed a separate Instagram account for some of these things. And I kind of bat the idea back and forth like, okay, yeah, like, you know, setting up another Instagram and having to create more content is hard. But what would big brand energy do? Big brand energy would mean treat yourself like you're the big brand and set up these separate entities, expecting that they're all going to grow and become successful and profitable. So that's big brand energy, like high level.
I'm hearing like act as if today because tomorrow it actually will be there.
Ooh, yeah, I love that. I got to take that with me, actually.
I didn't expect to get emotional, but you reminded me of something. So I'll share a quick story.
Okay.
I was working with a friend of mine, Rudy, who does a lot of this manifestation kind of energy stuff. And we're in the middle of a session. And basically the prompt was Oprah calls you up and she wants you to be on her show because your podcast has changed the world. How do you feel? And I was like crawling, Katrina, I was crawling out of my skin, nervous, anxious. Like, why is Oprah calling me? Like, my podcast hasn't changed the world. And the reason I'm sharing this is in that it was definitely imposter syndrome, but in that moment, like, I know what you're saying with big brand energy because like, I clearly didn't feel worthy for Oprah. Like, I
Mhm.
need to do X, Y, Z. I need to do this, this, this. Then Oprah can call me up and I'm going to be like, hey, Oprah, I've been expecting your call. But I'm not there yet. And you're saying that you don't have to be there. I'm doing quotations here. You don't have to be there to actually be there.
No, and honestly, like you don't actually have to feel big every day
Mm,
either. Like a lot of days like I feel small and someone might remind me, but you're really big on the outside or big brand energy, like channel that and I'm reminded like of why I believe in this concept because that is what helps kind of bring you back out of those smaller moments because I think more often than not we feel small, our inner doesn't quite catch up with our outward success, or maybe our outward success doesn't catch up with our inner. But it's this constant battle of like, okay, I'm going to feel big today, or I'm going to make big moves that will help me feel big because I'm feeling small. And like the big moves don't have to be like taking out a massive loan to like invest in like, I just want to like set the tone here. I don't expect that big move is actually really, really big. The big move could be, okay, I'm going to show up on social media and talk to the camera, even though inside I really don't feel
mm.
like I can or like I want to. But that's what would big brand energy would do. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to the camera for 30 seconds and feel big for a little bit.
What are some? So I love this because, like, when you talk about moving the needle and making what feels like a big move, even if it's just like a slight directional change, it'll completely change the whole rest of the output of the direction, just a little needle
Yeah.
move. And I'm curious, like, what are your needle moves? Because you're good at this, but you sometimes feel small. You sometimes struggle. Like, what are some of the examples of what felt like a heavy? It might even seem nominal to somebody else, but you're like, this was a heavy lift for me,
Yeah.
and I did it, and this is what happened.
It's a good question because you and I connected on LinkedIn. So I'm an Instagram girl. I feel safe in my community on Instagram. I love them. Whole community of cheerleaders. Posting on LinkedIn for me, whew, that is a big move every time I go to do it. And I know it has paid off in the past. I mean, I've received speaking engagements, paid speaking engagements through LinkedIn, clients, and I mean, most of all, you and I connected on LinkedIn. So that's how I've landed here. And that was through sharing this perspective that I feel safe sharing on Instagram, but I know that there's an audience for it elsewhere too. So for me, posting on LinkedIn is one of those needle moves, and it is so simple because a lot of the time I'm not retelling anything that I haven't already shared elsewhere. But for me, I have the stumbling block of the audience. I had a long corporate career, and I feel disconnected from corporate Katrina and Katrina I am now. And so a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I'm going to share this video of me talking to the camera on LinkedIn that did well on Instagram. And I know people will find it interesting over here, but do I want my VP from 5 years ago to watch this video I filmed in my bedroom? I don't know. So LinkedIn for me is a small needle move. Takes a lot of like, okay, we're doing it. Email marketing for me is another one because I always kind of feel annoying when we do some of these marketing tasks that people tell us we should do. So today or this week, I launched like a little mini offer to my email list. And I spent some time last week setting up my funnel, writing all the emails, getting it all set up, something I haven't done since July. I hate to admit that out loud, but I hadn't done it in a while. And I'm like, okay, we're experimenting or using different mediums because big brand energy tells us we should use all the different platforms. Like if I
Mm,
apply big brand energy to my own life, I'm like, we got to be omnipresent and cultivate our audiences in all these different ways. I'm not always good at it,
sure.
but that's another one. Me kind of getting over this fear of like infiltrating people's inboxes. And I'm like, got to remember, they tell us selling is serving. So I'm like, okay, there's someone out there that needs this offer I'm going to put out. So I'm going to set up my funnel properly and communicate it with multiple touch points. So that gets into the right hands of the person that needs that offer. So for me, it's those needle moves are the marketing tactics that don't
Mm.
always feel comfortable for me. Really easy to go on a podcast for me. Not so easy to show up on LinkedIn or on email for some reason, which seems like it should be easier actually. But yeah, that's my journey.
I mean, I'm the same way. That's why I started a podcast because this is easy peasy. But I send out an email and I see like 50% of people didn't even open it. And I'm like, what did I do?
Or someone unsubscribes. I'm like, I don't even want to know who that is because I'm nervous.
I know something. So I started the podcast to highlight other people. I struggle highlighting myself. I've always been an advocate for others. I find this is something a lot of entrepreneurial people, or even just like salespeople, personal brands, like we struggle sometimes advocating for ourselves. Very young age, you're taught to be humble. You're taught to be modest. And then this girl's coming on saying big brand energy. And we're like PR, like big brand, like what are your thoughts on that? Should everybody be doing PR or is it okay to be modest and just not do it?
PR is so many things. So I had a discovery call with a potential client last week who was like, well, I'm more of an introvert. So I don't know about this personal brand building journey that you see for me. And I'm like, well, there's PR for introverts. It just looks different than what we think it is. PR doesn't have to be like, I'm on camera, I'm going on TV, I'm filming, talking to the camera. It can be more introverted activities where we're just maybe writing and sharing more of our thoughts on social media, but also maybe on Substack or some of these other platforms where you can also build an audience, but it's not so like theatrical. But the humble piece is really interesting because I totally relate. I was raised where it's like, okay, we achieve things, but we don't necessarily put them in people's faces all the time. But that's actually the piece of PR that most of us miss. Like I work with clients all the time who go out there, pitch themselves, secure media placements, get a speaking gig, all these different things, go on a podcast, and then they don't share that content. And at that point, we've like totally missed the point of PR because if we don't share the press placements, they're not going to build our brand authority. I think they'll still build our brand awareness in different ways, depending on how you spoke to that person's audience or, depending on how many viewers maybe the article you were featured in received. But I actually believe in the power of PR for building brand authority more than the brand awareness piece at this point, just because I think everything is so saturated. So we're really responsible, and this becomes a bit of a hot take, but we're responsible for building our own engaged audiences. We really are. So PR helps in building that brand authority so your audience can see you as the expert. And then that helps you charge higher prices. So maybe you're not working so much or burnt out all the time. So that, to me, the sharing the press pieces, I'll call it a humble brag right now, lack of a better word, but sharing these things to position ourselves as the expert is so important. It's the most crucial piece. I can help people secure press placements all day long. The actual hardest part is encouraging them to share them once they've received them, which is, I never thought would be the challenge, but it is every single time.
Oh my, are you down to just kind of motion with the ocean and do something fun?
Yes.
So let's start from finish.
Okay.
We can either pick a client, we can use me, we can just create a rhetorical example. We're going to get some media placement, and then we're going to share it.
Love it.
Should we work on me? Should we use a client example? What is the purpose here?
I have a really good one because I just actually received a new client who is building a personal brand from scratch. So this is like a really great kind of case study on, how do you go from zero presence, nothing at all, to using PR in your business. So let's do this one.
Let's start literally at stage 0.
Yeah.
Stage 0. I haven't even taken a step yet. Stage 0. Right. What do I do? Why am I even doing it?
Why are you doing it? I guess that would be the first thing to unpack. So a lot of the times we think, okay, I want to have a personal brand, but what is the ultimate vision? What is the purpose? Doing some of that deep work that we like brush aside actually really helps the personal brand building journey because it helps us figure out how we want to show up and who we want to speak to. So when I start working with any client, we actually create like a very formal strategy that incorporates basic marketing principles like an ideal client profile, unique positioning, competitor differentiation, Because just like if you were to launch a product, you have to treat yourself like the product, which is one of like those icky things that people tend to shy away from when they're building a personal brand, because we've like, I don't know, somehow we've like seen that selling ourselves or this concept of selling ourselves is icky. But it's a piece of building a personal brand. So we have to overcome that. So that first phase is really the deep work. So most clients come to me, this new one that I'm just starting to work with, she has told me what her vision is and what she wants to do to help people. And so now we're taking her vision and then putting those like basic marketing foundation principles behind it. So based on her vision, I'm helping her figure out who is that ideal client, what platforms are we going to talk to them on, what is the key message, how is she standing apart from her competitors in the space. And competitors are a really interesting one. This is just like a good thing to note for anybody, because competitors can feel really overwhelming. Because if we look at the entire world, there are probably lots of people out there that do what we do.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like we could do competitor analysis for days. But my philosophy when it comes to personal brand building is becoming like a celebrity in your own backyard first. So really focusing on your local community. If you live in a big metropolitan area, I want you to get even more like, break out your neighborhood or the community events that you think you might go to. Maybe start going to them and seeing who's there and who's similar. So really start small. We got like micro with it to build out that brand strategy. So that's step one. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So once we have step one done, we have this brand. Okay. We've built it to be super unique, highly differentiated. We have our messaging. Now we have to share our story, because we can't expect anyone to share our story for us, i.e. PR, if we haven't started using it or sharing it ourselves first.
But my story's boring, Katrina.
Yes, I hear
I'm
that a lot.
kind of lame. I'm boring. I'm just an average guy. Like I just scratch my dog. I don't have anything to share.
Right, which is so important to understand what your purpose is. Because if we go back to our purpose, there's reason for us needing to share this story, because somewhere deep inside of you, you think you're going to like maybe change some lives or change a business. There's a purpose behind what we're doing. So we come back to that purpose and we start to engage social media. And, actually email marketing is a good one too, because I just admitted that I shy away from that one. That's on my to-do list. But based on this brand strategy, we figure out how we're going to share our story. So we talked about introverts a little earlier on. Okay, if you're super introverted, maybe that is starting a Substack where you can now write your thoughts and share them that way. And then you're getting away from like the pressure of like TikTok or these more visual platforms where you do have to show up and show your face every day. So we find the platform where you are going to best or share your story to your target audience. That's a key piece.
Yeah.
And then we get really good at sharing that story. Because the first couple of times we like start to share our business or share pieces of our story, it might not come out the way that we want to. It might not land or resonate with the audience that we want it to, but we have to stay consistent in these efforts. I mean, when I started my personal brand or my business overall, started my Instagram account in May 2023. That is when I really decided, okay, I'm now full-time self-employed. So I need to start big brand energy. I need to start treating myself like a big business and show up on social media. And I would say, so this was May 2023, I would say till like September, October 2023, I struggled. I struggled so much. I hated posting on social media. I got obsessed with the follower count. I let it drag me down because I was starting from zero. I did not have like a public facing persona before that. So I really let it get me down. And then I invested in some outside support to help me figure out how I was going to share my story in different ways. I started using PR in my own business, which helped me get comfortable with telling my story on different mediums. And then I actually started to fall in love with cultivating a community on social media because I could see how my story was starting to resonate with the people I was sharing it with. But it's not ever going to be like an overnight, like light switch moment where all of a sudden you're like 0 to 1,000 followers who all love you and know you. We
Yeah.
have to like get through the uncomfortable piece of sharing first before we start to like reap the reward. So for this client that is starting from scratch, I have assured her, we underestimate how much we can achieve in a year, but we have to stay consistent with those efforts. Her presence and her business is going to look completely different 12 months from now, but it's going to take some trust and time and consistency to get to that transformation. Because 12 months is a long time too. Short
Yeah.
and long, depending on how you're feeling that day. So that's step 2. So it's like build the brand, share the brand, and then we use PR to amplify the brand. But if you don't have that brand presence, PR efforts are so much harder to implement. And that's why I focus so much on the brand building and, sharing your story first, because PR has changed so much. It's actually not that easy to just pitch a journalist to share your story if you are not a credible source. If they can't go to your LinkedIn or your Instagram and see that you're an expert on the subject already, well, why should they feature you? Like that's a risk on their part as a journalist, right? So a lot of the time we think, oh, I can just hire a publicist. They can help me get my message out, and then I can skip having to do social media, but it just doesn't work that way anymore. It's gotten so competitive and PR is so broad. There are so many opportunities, but you have to like create the opportunities for yourself by really taking your brand seriously. So that's kind of the formula, the 3 steps from 0 to like big brand energy, 0 to personal brand.
0 to personal brand. It's so true that, so I'm imagining even if I fail at a media opportunity, like what an opportunity, what a learning experience. However, I would prefer to attend it. Like I've already talked about my brand. I already know my vision. I already know my purpose. I've already talked about this behind the scenes. I've already written about it. I have a Substack. I have a podcast. So you jump on the news and it's like, it's not like you're trying to make something up on the spot. You've become a professional.
Yes, exactly.
A friend of mine, Ashley Foz, jokes about this. There's thought leadership, and people want to be a thought leader, but there's 2 parts. There's thoughts. We need to have those.
Yep.
But we also have to be a leader. And I think there's a lot of leaders that have crappy thoughts, which they've got large megaphones. We already see that all the time. Leaders with bad thoughts. And then there's people with incredible thoughts, but they're not leaders because they're not doing the PR aspect. So the world doesn't get to hear that message.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, dude.
Yeah, that sucks. And I think we underestimate how powerful our words or our story can be. I don't know, like you were talking about, I mean, facetiously, but you referenced earlier, like I just sit here and scratch my dog. I'm like, me too. Like really, a lot of the time, like I don't feel like I am the Oprahs of the world. I don't know, maybe that's a weird reference to make at this point in modern media, but I don't feel like these people that have shifted so many things. But those people have built careers that have spanned decades and they've done so much in that time. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it floating around on the internet. It's like, don't compare your day 1 to someone's day 1,000, but it's also like, don't compare your day 100 to someone's day 10,000, because even if you have been doing your business for a couple of years, there's still so much more to go and to accomplish. So we get tied up in the like, oh, but I haven't really done anything, or like, I haven't really like moved the needle. But I think that's false, because most business owners would not have been able to grow their business to whatever stage it's at right now without at least having a little bit of an impact. So I think perspective's everything.
In perspective, I mean, I plan on living to be like 150. So my 30s is I'm only a quarter of the way through anyways. So it's like someone could be 65 and miserable, but have lots of money. And you listening could be 35 and broke, and you have 30 years before you're to that 65. And guess what you're not going to be? miserable.
Exactly.
So we kind of touched on PR, but not like thoroughly. So
Yeah.
we're building a brand. We know who we serve, where they hang out. We're posting on social media. Maybe we've started a Substack. Maybe we've put on a couple Zoom events. Maybe we're attending live events and networking. How do I actually get like PR deals? Like what kind of deals should I be getting, and how do I get them?
So it really depends. I love to talk about accessible PR because
Okay.
a lot of the time we think about PR, we spend a lot of money on a publicist or a PR agency, and we expect to be in vogue next week. That is unfortunately, fortunately for me, I would love to be in vogue next week. That is not the case. So I love to talk about accessible PR because this is what kind of cracks open like what PR is and what it isn't, especially for entrepreneurs that are just starting out. So accessible PR is going on podcasts that have a similar audience size to you right now. They might be, they might not be the Joe Rogans of the world, probably not, but they're the stepping stones that are going to help you get really good at telling your story. They're also going to be the things that you need to consistently reinforce your expert positioning. So I love to look at podcasts as like kind of the gateway to PR because I really believe there are opportunities for everyone at any stage in business to start going on podcasts and getting comfortable with this medium. Podcasting is also a great gateway to one day maybe going on TV or like, if there's a local radio show, because now you've gotten comfortable with talking, because that's a part that we often like underestimate the challenge of like being able to share your thoughts in a way that is intelligent and eloquent is actually really challenging. And sometimes we think we're going to talk about a topic or what we do in a very certain way. And then we start talking about it. And 6 months goes by and we're like, oh, I don't really talk about that thing anymore.
Mm.
Or my business, especially when we're new business owners in our first, call it 3 to 5 years, I believe things in our business change so rapidly in those early stages. So we're not even really sure what we're doing yet. So we might talk about something on a podcast and then decide, okay, actually, I don't have those views anymore. Or this isn't something that my business even really does anymore. And so
Mm.
thank God we only shared it on a podcast that had a smaller audience of listeners and not the national news, because we now have an opportunity to kind of curate our messaging a bit more and come into our brand a bit more. And, when people go to Google us because our brand has grown so much, maybe that smaller podcast where we were just getting comfortable with things, maybe that's not going to be at the top of the search results when people are Googling our name. So podcasting is a great one to start with. You also mentioned like Zoom events and that kind of thing. And I think, a lot of personal brands come to me wanting to do more speaking engagements. And I really believe that that's also an accessible method of PR. But accessible, lives in the world of realism. So are you pitching yourself to a conference of like hundreds of thousands of attendees? Probably not, because we really need that social proof and that audience to be able to, get us across the line for a deal like that.
Mm.
But how do we start? Well, maybe it's hosting our own online or offline events. So I call this like, creating your own venues. So maybe it's hosting an in-person networking event where you're going to do a 20-minute talk on whatever your expertise is. That's a great way to like start getting comfortable talking in front of an audience. Better yet, have somebody there who's also going to like record you speaking to the
Mm.
audience. So then you can share that content of you as a speaker. And then that starts to open the door to other opportunities. The other thing that's really important to remember about speaking opportunities is because a lot of the time people are like, oh, I don't know where to find them. And I'm
Sure.
like, well, in the early days of like using PR to grow your brand, you shouldn't be finding the speaking opportunities. They should be coming to you. So, if you have grown a personal brand that is unique and highly differentiated, and you are consistently talking about your expertise online on your own platforms, that's when event coordinators or people in your community are going to reach out to you to speak at their event. And that's what I call receiving an opportunity because you're not actively looking for it. And to me, that's proof of a strong personal brand because now people are seeing your expertise and wanting you at their event. So it's an opportunity that came to you. And something important to remember about that is a speaking engagement is a lot of work. And event coordinators know this.
Yeah.
I just spoke at an event last week. I did an hour-long presentation. The prep for that hour-long presentation, which actually evolved from other presentations that I have done previously. So it's not like I was starting from scratch. I still invested probably 8 to 10 hours of prep work to create that 1 hour presentation for an audience. And it was a smaller audience, but that's the time investment. So a lot of event coordinators don't feel comfortable asking that of somebody if they don't know that you're a speaker or it's something that you're interested in doing. Because do you feel good about asking someone to create an hour-long presentation that might be unpaid? Because usually if you are just starting out, it's going to be an unpaid opportunity. Like that's a big ask. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Like speaking ops are so great, but we really need to make sure that we are understanding why maybe they're hard to find and start to create the opportunities for ourselves. So that's the second one. And then the third one, because I have these kind of like three, I almost said gateway drug, but like 3 gateways to PR. So we have podcasting, speaking gigs, and then just local media. So understanding how you can start to engage with your local media and what are the opportunities for that. So local media is newspaper, TV. Out where I live, there's a lot of like lifestyle publications that highlight upcoming events or maybe community groups and things like that. So knowing that when it comes to your local media, you need to have a more widespread message. How does that fit in? I'm probably not going on my morning news to talk about PR for personal branding because that is such a niche topic in the like grand scheme of things.
Sure.
But I have a client who's a plumber and often will pitch to local TV to talk about how to prep your plumbing for winter, how to recover your plumbing after winter, things like that have widespread appeal. So it doesn't always work for every type of business, but seeing if there is opportunity for that, or maybe in the future there is. So I have some like other niche businesses that I work on. I have a women's golf league. Now that is an opportunity for starting to go on TV and share that message because it has more widespread appeal. My business right now that appeals to entrepreneurs and is B2B isn't quite going to make it on the morning news, but there's other elements of my business or my personal brand that could. So those are kind of the 3.
It's important because I'm thinking like Women's Golf League, they bring you on. You're still a PR and personal brand specialist. People are going to see you. They're going to know, like, and trust you. If someone's involved with a charity, maybe people don't want to hear them come on and talk about being a life coach, but if they talk about their charity.
Yes, 100%. Like you've nailed it. Like that is the point. And that's the amazing thing about having a personal brand, by the way. It's like we're not one dimensional. We have all these things that we're passionate about. And as our personal brands grow and expand, great actual loop back to this client that I've been working with who's starting from scratch. She has all these ideas for like other products or services that she wants to put under her personal brand. And I'm like, these are so great, but establish the personal brand first. What is the core offering? What is the core business? And then these other things can come, but you also need to understand like, you have to test the market for some of these things. A personal brand that goes out with like all of these different things, a book, a podcast, skincare products, all these things under the sun. It's going to be much harder to become well known for whatever it is you really want to like build your brand on because people don't have something to focus on or like latch on to. People are familiar with me in my community because of my work in PR. And then I've been able to leverage that in different ways to grow successful brands that are unrelated to PR. But it starts with like getting specific and growing from there.
Let's talk a little bit more about the taking action and testing the market, because there's one thing I wanted to challenge you on a little bit.
Okay.
And I think it's a fantastic sign if people are calling you up saying, come do this, come do that. Obviously, you have a great personal brand.
Yeah.
I find that's not the case for most people, that their phone or DMs are just blowing up every day for all these opportunities.
Yeah.
And talking about gateway drugs, have you ever heard of hopium?
No. Is that
Well,
an actual drug?
opium is.
Okay.
And hopium is when you're just addicted to that hope that one day the call will come in and one day my brand will be big and I'm going to pretend it's big and I'm going to attract it, but it lacks the action. You're high on the hope.
Yep.
And tell me if I'm wrong. I assume that you need to go out and start pitching people. You have to start calling people. You have to start sending DMs. They might not come to me. I might have to go get them, right?
Yeah. So I love to call that community engagement. So
Okay.
I wouldn't actually call that pitching, because the last thing that you want to do is just start treating these potential relationships like they're transactions. So a lot of the time it starts with building authentic relationships first. But I love that we're like talking about this, because this is such an important piece. It's like, yeah, we want to receive these opportunities, but those come from forming authentic relationships with the people in our communities. So, for example, I would say all of the speaking opportunities I've ever received have come from people that I really truly care about, and I make an effort to connect with them regularly. And I don't make an effort to connect with them regularly just because I think they have something for me.
Right.
It's because I care about these people. And by connecting, it can be as simple as commenting on a post or a couple posts when they're sharing some of their latest wins. Could be sending them a DM or an email to just kind of check in on them and see how they're doing. So I actually call this influencer relations, which people get confused about because we think influencer in the more TikTok, Kim Kardashian sense.
Yeah.
But to me, we all have influencers in our business that are influencers for us. And they might not be the people with thousands of online followers, but a lot of the time they're people with true influence, like in their communities. I think about one of mine who like has a terrible social media presence, but he's sending me leads to my business, asking me to speak at events all like every week, every other week, he's in my inbox with something. That is an influencer. And that's someone that I like have so much deep respect for his support of my business. And so if he asks me for a favor, I'll do one, because I am like, yes, we now have a real relationship, which is what we forget about. We have to go back to like, PR. I see this all the time because people now pitch me for things like, I have a small blog on my website, but people want to write for the blog, or people want to do an Instagram live. And it's like, yes, but don't come to me with the cold pitch like right away. Like, let's get to know each other first. Like, take a girl out for dinner first. You know what I mean?
You don't even have to it doesn't have to be a whole meal.
Totally.
A friend of mine, Chris Van Vliet, 4-time Emmy Award winner, billion views on YouTube. Like, he actually knows what he's talking about. I'm just learning as I go. He talks about the breadcrumbs, where every post is a breadcrumb. Those little reels, 20-second reel, breadcrumb, DM, breadcrumb. Those add up. And then maybe he has shorter form content, but like 3 to 5 minutes, or a blog post, something a little short but not huge.
Yeah.
That's still kind of a breadcrumb, kind of like a slice of a cake.
Yes.
And then
totally.
the live event, the podcast binging, the hiring you for tens of thousands of dollars, that's the whole cake. But you don't have to go around feeding people the whole cake. You just have to feed them these tiny little breadcrumbs. Yeah. And it adds up to something significant over time. Like every time I post, Katrina messages me or comments on my post, or every time I'm feeling down, suddenly she's in my inbox with something positive. Like, those are tiny little breadcrumbs. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate, like, it's not like you have to take someone out for some big fancy dinner. You just have to plant tiny little seeds of goodness, and then it comes back around.
Yes. And honestly, like for some reason, we lose that when it comes to working with like local media. I don't know
Hmm.
why we don't see our journalists like people, but I would just encourage you, like, if we do identify maybe a local journalist or podcast host or someone that we would really like to, either have write about us or invite us on our podcast, connect with them on a platform where they are already active. So,
Hmm.
like, if your local journalist has like a private Instagram, like probably not. But what you could do is maybe you looked at some of their latest work and liked something that they wrote about. Just send them a note saying that you love their latest work. No expectation of like also including a pitch, but
Right.
start to familiarize them with you and like start building an authentic relationship first, because that is what really is going to like pay off so much more down the road. I think about this podcast opportunity I had earlier this year. I went on the podcast, had a great relationship with the host, and then a couple weeks later, she invited me to partner on an online workshop with her and a couple other creators. And that was because I didn't just look at it as like, this is just a podcast interview. We stayed connected after the fact. We're still connected to this day. Like, she is someone I consider a friend. If I ever go down to Florida, I will certainly
Mm.
like hit her up for coffee and continue to nurture that, because I really believe in this collaboration piece as being such a crucial point in growing our personal brands, because really, if we don't have a community of cheerleaders or people that believe in our work, it's gonna be really hard to grow that business, because where are all the people? Where is all the proof of our hard work? So yeah,
Yeah.
influencer relations. I'm doing quotation marks, air quotes.
And it's hard to sustain a business. I feel like if you got some money in your pocket, you can run a couple ads and make some money if you do it right. But where's the sustainability in that if everyone's a short-term client, there's churn rate, people don't care like you, they just buy the product, it's a bad product. Like this is like it's hard to think about this sometimes, but this isn't like a 1 month plan. This is like a 10-year plan. This is like a career plan, right?
Yeah, it really is. And it's interesting because I do publicity coaching and I have some coaching offers. I actually never thought I would be someone that worked in the online coaching space. It does get a little bit of a bad rep sometimes. Um, and I think that's because sometimes in the online coaching space, specifically on Instagram, it can feel a bit like fake or inauthentic or short term. And what I had learned, sounds like you have maybe an interesting
I
thing to
was gonna
add.
say is it doesn't always feel like fake. It sometimes actually is
Oh, but
fake,
yeah,
and
that
it's
too.
literally is fake. Like
Yeah.
I can go rent a Lamborghini for a couple grand, get some videographers, and pretend to be someone I'm not, and
Mhm.
that doesn't mean I can deliver a solution. It just
Yes.
means that I can fake. So when you say it feels fake, I just like I you saw my face. I was like, it doesn't just feel fake. It actually often is fake. It's
Yes.
literal fraud. And it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad that people like that are out there, but it just is the reality of it.
Well, and what's super interesting is there's this concept that's kind of linked to that, where it's like work less and make more, which
Mm.
generally I agree, but it's like
I like the
go
idea. Yeah.
like sounds great. But I had made the statement a couple times, but we're going to record it now so people will hear it all the time. I say, sometimes we need to treat our coaching business like a real business, which doesn't mean just like living in the throes of Instagram. Like how
Dubai.
Yes, like how do you build a sustainable coaching business? Well, you're not just going to do coaching. So
Mm.
coaching actually extended out of the agency that I own, because I do traditional public relations management. I do, brand and web design and social media management. So that's why my publicity coaching is so effective, because it derives from my experience in like doing this for real. So that's why I can help people do X, Y, or Z when it comes to PR and personal brand growth. But if it wasn't for that agency, which for a while I was actually trying to get rid of because it's actually a lot of work, like agency owners out there, it's hard to grow and run and scale an agency.
I'm doing it right now.
Yes, it's hard,
Pe- pe-
uncomfortable.
People joke entrepreneurs work double time at the same amount of income just not to work for someone else. Sometimes I think I'm working triple time.
Yes.
It's not as glamorous as people make it sound. It does require work. It's a grind.
It really does. But then I was like, oh, this agency is actually what makes me as a coach, not the word that I tried really hard to not call myself that for a long time, because I was like, I got the ick when it came to that word. But this agency is what legitimizes the business. And sure, one day I will certainly work less and make more, but I'm growing a quote unquote real business. Someone's going to be mad that I said that. But I just think that in coaching, because I have so much experience taking other people's coaching programs, seeing some of the stuff in the works, and I'm like, this isn't like if Instagram died tomorrow, what do you have? Or like if the Instagram algorithm changes, then what? And people don't think about that. And when I say like facetiously growing a real business, Instagram is a big lead generator for me, as LinkedIn has become too, but neither of those things are my biggest lead generator, which is referrals and actually a little bit of like cold outreach, just in case anybody's interested to know. And those are the things that I focus a lot of my business development efforts on, because we will go through slow moments on social media. And I have suffered the effects of going too far in social media and neglecting some of these other really important modes of lead generation for my business because I got distracted by the shiny pennies and I went all in. And so big brand energy is me focusing on like trying to bring everything back into the fold. So when it comes to coaching, that's kind of why I'm like, it's not always like a real sustainable business, because I think there are so many opportunities for it to just go away, which would suck.
My brain is like fogging up because the shiny pennies metaphor might be my new favorite metaphor, because I'm imagining how many pennies I'd need to actually have a substantial amount of income and how heavy it would be and how much space it would take up. And it's nice to see the shiny penny, but like it's so nominal.
Yes, it really is.
Do you find a lot of people are chasing those shiny pennies when they could be doing something more?
Yeah. And I think it's because there is this narrative that I shouldn't be working so much. And I agree. You shouldn't be working so much. You should scale a business properly, but that usually means doing a lot of groundwork and feeling the pain in the beginning and setting up systems and processes that are sustainable. So before we started recording, I had mentioned that I'm currently working on an export plan, a business plan for my business, which is something I am doing. And I am like, wow, this is like the most seriously I've ever treated my business. Cause now I'm like, okay, we're working on all of these things that scare me. But if I was to just live in the realm of coaching where, okay, now I'm going to launch another offer, make my money here, and then another one, that's still working a ton, because you're going to get burnt out by constantly launching and constantly having to show up on social media. And, if we think about all of the most, longstanding businesses in history, or like, even in our community, like those are all real businesses that have like many different streams of revenue. They've grown teams. So I just don't think this concept of like, I'm going to scale a coaching business, have 0 employees, charge a ton to have a small contingent of clients that are always happy and always love the results I'm giving. It's not realistic, but it's the dream that people keep pushing. And I don't think we should be pushing that dream.
We need to do like a 5-parter.
We should.
Because there's a lot here.
Yeah.
It's like, know what you're good at, know your audience, go out there and stand up and actually talk about it. Get on podcasts, do events, host events. If you want to sit at the table, you just bring your own table, is what I always say. If you want to be on the mic, you just bring the mic. the one thing that we're ending here, and this is why I want to do like a part like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, is you do still want to deliver exceptional results.
Mhm.
PR is powerful, but working on your business and your brand and being authentic and delivering results probably is the best PR on earth, because everybody's just going to talk about you because you kick ass.
100%. And if that's the part where you slip up and we're so concentrated on like the shiny penny, the outward appearance, those like mediocre client results or unhappy clients is what can easily like take the business down. And I mean, having uncomfortable client situations is just a part of growing a business. Like these are things we go through and we learn, but I always say just go back to this like basic relationship building piece. So like treat each client, because it is a relationship, but really take those relationships seriously and, be honest and upfront with how things are going, figure out how you can make things better if they're not going well, and like really just make sure that you can maintain a level of friendship maybe, but just like positivity between you and that client. And I appreciate that as business owners, we learn things are never going to be perfect all the time. Like we're not always going to deliver like exceptional results 100% of the time. Things happen. You know what? Maybe we bite off more than we can chew. Maybe someone is not totally aligned with how we operate. All these different things happen. Okay, that's life. That's growing a business. But it's how you learn from them and come back from them and try to just like still maintain your own brand throughout managing them. That really is the most important piece of growing your personal brand, being a good human.
Don't forget, guys, be a good human.
So simple.
It seems like common sense. I don't know. That's another, and we can go on tangents, but we see money, we see opportunity, we see the internet, and we forget that like humans just buy from humans that work with humans. They want to work with a good human that cares about them. Like, we need to not forget the essentials, dude.
Yeah. And that's like the first thing that people forget about. So,
Oh my gosh. If someone wants to talk to a kick-ass human who's going to keep it real, that will be authentic, that literally just said she's working on growing her business now, like making it better. Like you're obviously always working on just better solutions, a better business, a better you across the board. It might be months to years. I can have you back, but it might be months to years before you're back on the show. So if someone does want a part 2 quicker than 3 years down the road, how do they go get a part 2 with you?
Great question. So, like I said, I mean, you and I connected on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Katrina Owens. Just pop me a message over there. I am trying to deliver a lot more value and insights on that platform. If you're looking for even more than that, though, you can find me on Instagram. Knockout Directive is my handle and the name of my company over there. And that's where I can pretty consistently drop some personal branding and PR knowledge in a week. And other than that, if you're looking to dive deeper, my calendar is always open for a discovery call where we just chat, like no obligation. Let's just find out more about your business and my business and see if we might be a good fit for working together, because growing a personal brand is deeply personal. So you want to work with the right person and make sure that that's the right decision for you. So that's where we can continue the conversation.
I'm hoping someone's either taking screenshots, taking notes, heading to the show notes, going to the description. If you're driving, obviously, I like to just take a quick screenshot right now and come back to it. If they already have a pen and paper, a phone out, let's give them one task.
Okay.
One task, because we talked about a lot today. If they were to take a sheet of paper, draw a line, and start writing, what should they do right now?
Ooh, good question. Give me 30 seconds because there's so many things I want to say right now. Okay. The first thing, the one thing that I want you to get super, super clear on is your unique differentiator. So forget your competitors for a second. Forget what people are telling you it should be, and just decide, what do I want to do? And how do I do it differently than everybody else? Get super clear on that one thing. And then that's going to make it so much easier to build out the rest of your personal brand, understand what makes you different from your competitors, start to share that story, and then start to pitch it to your media.
Boom. Katrina, thanks for coming on. Drop the mic. I feel like we got some big podcast energy going on right now. This was fun to have you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love that we connected on LinkedIn. That was like when I was first like getting comfortable going back on there. So I appreciate it.
Most of my listeners are on LinkedIn. So if you get a bunch of DMs as soon as they're listening to this right now, so I'm talking to you live in person, but if they're not DMing you right now, I don't know what's happening. You're literally check your inbox right now, Katrina. It's going to be loaded with DMs.
Can't wait.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.